Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is our Year to Shine and our continued discussion on Brene Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection. There is so much to say about the topics in tonight's entry, and it's very synchronistic with the books that we've read this year, and then of course with our Simple Abundance year last year with Sarah Ban Breathnach's book. So last time we talked about courage, and we talked about how important that is as far as being vulnerable, and how this is a part of wholeheartedness and compassion, right? Yes. And why do I always forget one of them? Last time I forgot the compassion. Connection. Yeah, and tonight's topics are love, belonging, and being enough. When you think about connection, which we already talked about, I think about connection in terms of there being a part of belonging and connection, right? Because if you're having that give and take of connection that she talked about, then hopefully you feel that sense of belonging. So this is probably the closest to the Madly in Love with Me book that we read, as far as there's some self-acceptance in here and self-love and everything. But I mentioned that this book is different than other books because it's written by a researcher, and she's really trying to get the data together and have new definitions of words and really get to the bottom of some of these concepts. And I can appreciate one thing especially that she discusses that I agree is a difficult topic. So she does say a whole bunch of times in this section of the book that she feels that belonging and love are an innate thing that is just a part of being a human, and that it's something that we are just born knowing that we need. Now, whether life gives us that message back is another story, but she does feel like it's something that is at a core level of our being. And also, she says in her research that every time she was talking to someone about belonging, there was always the word love mixed in. So she does believe that there's sort of a symbiotic dance between those two words as well. And she has some definitions for us. Here's what she says love is. And before I even read this, I should say one other thing. She was talking in this entry too about how many times do you really think, what is love? I mean, you might see it, you might know what it feels like or felt like at one time, and you might even say I love you to someone every single day. But then when it comes down to it, what is it really? And she also puts forth that she believes that it's an action, not just a feeling. So here's her definition. We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known, and when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from that offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection. Love is not something we give or get. It is something that we nurture and grow. A connection that can only be cultivated between two people when it exists within each one of them. We can only love others as much as we love ourselves. That's what we're going to talk about tonight, that I think is an interesting topic. Shame, blame, disrespect, betrayal, and the withholding of affection damage the roots from which love grows. Love can only survive these injuries if they are acknowledged, healed, and what's that last word? Rare. Okay. So that makes me think about our self-love tree from the last book, when you think about the roots of it. And yeah, the soil underneath it could be riddled with doubt and shame and fear and other things that could really poison your tree. So you can only love others as much as you love yourself. This is a controversial topic, and she does go in later in this topic about how she's learned some things about love through her research. And she makes a statement, and we've talked about this in other books too, that it's way easier to love other people and accept other people than it is to accept ourselves in a lot of cases. So she put this out on her blog, and she had some really, like polar opposite reactions to people saying, like she asked something like, does loving other people help you learn to love yourself? She asked a few questions. And she got really the whole gamut of answers. And I think I've said before, maybe multiple times on the channel, I don't like when people say that, well, it's a little different. I don't like when people say that you will never be loved by someone until you love yourself. Because especially for me, since I struggle with loving myself, hearing someone say that is extremely hopeless to me. It makes me feel like, well, I guess I should just give up, because maybe I won't ever love myself. And if I have to love myself for someone else to love me, then it's a lost cause. And I also don't like when people say that you can't love others unless you love yourself. And I know that to be untrue, and she talks about this too, about some mothers that say they love their kids beyond anything else. Like they definitely love their kids more than they love themselves. And one of her readers made a good comment on her blog, and Brene shared it with us. And the reader said, the difference is that the mothers can see their children and they believe that they deserve love. So that's why they can love them. Whereas when they look within at themselves, maybe there's some deep flaws or shame or past mistakes or just things about themselves that they just don't feel are acceptable. And maybe things they've even done and hurt people, and you could name a million things. And so they look at themselves and they can't believe that they deserve love. So that was a really good point. So I think it is a very common self-help thing to say, you have to learn to love yourself before anybody can love you. But just like, and I'm thinking of the movie Forrest Gump, where he says something like, I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is. It's like, I think we know what love is. And I think Brene's probably right, that we're born knowing what it is. And whether we struggle with loving ourselves doesn't mean that we don't have the capacity to love, or that we don't know what it is. I did say in another video, people will love you as much as you let them, which I believe is along these same lines. Because you might not even know the full capacity of love if your idea of love is so skewed. I think mine is definitely skewed. Like when I think of love, I think of hurt, I think of fear, I think of trauma, I think of rejection, pain. So it's not a positive thing. So anyway, I lost my train of thought just because I went there, but but I still feel like I'm able to love friends, and I can love Annabelle. Like, I probably love Annabelle more than anything in the world, and she's very easy to love because I don't know, humans are complicated, but that's my kitty, by the way, if you don't know. So even though I have shared very honestly that self-love is a difficult thing for me, it doesn't mean I don't know what love is. And so I appreciate Brene bringing that whole discussion to the table, because everybody has a different view on whether that statement of you have to love yourself before you can love others is true or not, or whether they even want to talk about it. Because somebody just said, thank you for ruining my day, I don't want to talk about it. That's probably what I would say too, because like I said, when people make statements like that, I just say, why don't you just tell me that I should just not go on with my life, because it's totally pointless if nobody's going to love me if I can't love myself. So I aspire to get there, but I almost feel like I have so much healing to do, but I feel like it's going to take a very special person to really help me get there, because I feel like it is going to have to be a two-way thing. Like, I'm going to have to be with somebody that understands how broken and scared I am, and that person can make me feel safe and allow me to experience love in a positive way. I'm not saying I've never experienced it in a positive way. I would say earlier in my life, I definitely have one specific relationship that I think was the closest to my ideal of love ever. But then I would say, like in most other cases, it's been dysfunctional, or I don't know, probably not the wisest of decisions. So back to Brene. Sorry, I'm being way too autobiographical here. So I said that she gave us some definitions here. So we have the love definition that I just went into. Now, what about belonging? Because that was the next thing. And remember how she said they were very intertwined, and I can understand that. Belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but often barriers to it. That's interesting. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. So there's another one of those statements. And I can understand why she says love and belonging are so connected, because I think if you are in a loving, think about like a romantic life partner sort of situation, then I would say that you, in that sort of a loving relationship, that you would want there to be a sense of belonging. And so I'm just thinking of something that I said a few minutes ago. It's like, here's my sweet Annabelle. Well, in both cases, she is always hitting home that there needs to be that vulnerability and really showing your authentic self. And probably because I'm usually afraid to do that, then that does hold me back from love and belonging. But Annabelle accepts me. She doesn't know all my secrets though, but I could tell her and she wouldn't care. So another thing about belonging, she mentioned fitting in, right, in that little definition, but she said she used to think of belonging being more about fitting in, but she said it's not. That's actually not belonging. Belonging is not trying to conform to other people to quote unquote fit in. It's actually totally being yourself, no holds barred, and then I guess you're fitting in that case, but you have an affinity with other people. Yeah. And she does talk a lot about self-love, which we just did a whole month on, and goes into that discussion on her blog about how there was a different reaction to it. What did I leave out? Well, I forgot to say at the very beginning about love, that she found that the people that were living in this wholehearted way that she's helping us to aspire to, the difference with them and the people that were not living in this wholehearted way was that they felt worthy of love and belonging. So where do you think that comes from? Do you think that's something that's learned? You know, if we're innately born with these things, as Brene suggests, or like these feelings of knowing that we deserve love and belonging, and then maybe we're denied those things, and then we have this pattern of learning that it's not safe to love, or that if you do show your real self, that you won't belong. I'll share another thing. This is within the last 12 years. I had a friend who I thought I could trust, and I opened up about something that I don't share with people. I just don't. And it changed our relationship, and we are no longer friends. She had a real problem with it. She didn't know how to express that to me. I felt awkward after saying it. I thought I could trust her, and then I think there were other issues. We just weren't as close as I thought we were. But so that happened in my adult life even, you know. And so of course it makes me think that it makes me afraid to share things. And that was just a friend. That wasn't even like a guy I was trying to date or anything. So I think if, like, Brene talks about love being the opposite of shame, and that in order to conquer shame, you have to talk about the things that you have shame about. But if you have experience, like that experience that I had with that friend, that stops me from feeling safe and like I can do that again. Although I will say, I do have some wonderful friends, some of you that are watching too, who I have been able to be honest with. But you all might remember that I probably knew you for 4 or 5 years before I really said a couple things. So I do hold a lot of things close to the chest. Yeah. And I have shame about a lot of things too. So this book is definitely one for me. I'm sure there's other people out there that have the same concerns and in a different way. But one thing to mention too, she talks about this worthiness and how we probably have these things in our head, and there's probably a list of 15 things here that she gives examples of, that it's like, oh, I'll be worthy when I do such and such, like I lose 10 pounds, or I get the job, or I can hold my marriage together, she says, when my parents finally approve of me. So the difference about this wholehearted living is that it's about being worthy now, not later, and not dependent on if something happens. So how do you get there? What do you guys think? In addition to letting go of ifs and whens, another critical piece of owning our story and claiming our worthiness is cultivating a better understanding of love and belonging. And that's what we've been talking about tonight. We desperately need both, but we rarely talk about what we really are and how they work. Well, I hope you got something out of those definitions. The next time, she's just hitting us hard here. The next time we're going to be talking about what things get in the way. And so there'll probably be a lot of things in this next section about her special topic of shame. Because shame can definitely, like she said, it can be the opposite of love. So we're learning a lot about love this year and about self-love. I'm glad you're here. We're learning how to shine the lights on these dark spots of, or dark parts of us, I guess, and trying to shine through and show the world our true selves if we ever can, and be proud of it. We're all getting there. It's a journey. Thanks for being with me here, and I'll see you on the next video.